Chapter 19 of the Plum in the Golden Vase. Chongzhen edition of Embroidered Portraits. Snakes in the Grass beat Chongzhen, leaping her emotions, to Simon King. The poem says, "There is no beginning for a person's decadence, but I hope you can end it. Don't count the years. How can we look forward to old kindness? Renewing one's past and forgetting one's past is still derided by a gentleman. Although I am far away, I will never forget you for a moment. It is thick but not thin. When I miss you, I will see you." It is said that Simon King built the garden shed. It took about half a year to complete the decoration and paint, and it had a completely new look from front to back. Xing Feng's whole family had been drinking for several days, and it was no problem. One day, in early August, it was Jia Tixing's birthday and we were serving wine at Shenmai's Wang. We hired for singers, musicians, and jugglers. When Simon King was about to sit down, he went on horseback. Wu Yunyang arranged wine, food, and fruits at home, and made an appointment with Li Jier, Meng Yulu, Sun Zui, eldest sister, and Pan Jinlian to open the new garden gate for a tour. Inside, there are flowers, trees, and patios as far as the eye can see, and it's a beautiful garden. But see, the front is 5 feet high, and there are 20 boards round it. There is a gatehouse in the front and several pavilions on the 4 sides. Rockery, real water, green bamboos and pines. If it is high but not pointed, it is called a platform. If it is tall but not steep, it is called a pavilion. Each of the 4 seasons has its own scenery. In the spring, you can enjoy the swallows in the hull, where the peaches and plums are blooming. In the summer, you can enjoy the Lingxi Pavilion, where the lotus and lotus colors are competing. In the autumn, you can enjoy the green towers, where the yellow chrysanthemums are blooming. In the winter, you can enjoy the Tibetan Spring Pavilion, where the white plums and jade are interspersed. There is also the shallow path of the delicate flower cage. The fragrant trees press the carved railings. The windy willows line the moth eyebrows, and the rainy begonias accompany the tender face. In front of the Yanyu Hall, the lantern flowers seem to be in bloom. Behind the Zhangchun Pavilion, the white ginkgo trees are half blooming. Money blooms on the side of the lake and mountains, and stalagmites grow on the edge of the treasure threshold. The graceful purple swallows pass through the curtains, and the oriole sings in the green shade. There is also the moon window snow cave, and the water pavilion and wind pavilion. The wood incense shed is connected to the tea frame, and the 1,000-leaf peach is opposite to the 3 spring willow. Pine walls, bamboo pots, curved water square pools, reflecting steps of banana palms, sunflowers, and pomegranates. The swimming algae is amazing, with white butterflies dancing among the flowers. Exactly, the peony unfolds the bodhisattva face, and the lychee holds the ghost king's head. At that moment, Wu Yunyang led the women, either walking hand in hand along the fragrant path, or playing with grass and sitting on the fragrant grass. One is facing the scenery in the pavilion, and the actor is throwing red beans with golden scales. The other is leaning on the threshold to watch the flowers, laughing so well that Luowan is frightened by pink butterflies. Yunyang then walked to the highest pavilion, called Woyanting, and played chess with Meng Yulu and Li Jier. Pan Jinlian, Sister Simon, and Sun Zui were all watching from the flower pavilion. In front of the building, beside the peonies, there is a peony garden, a crabbable pavilion, a rose stand, a wood incense shed, as well as cold-resistant gentleman bamboo and snow-defying Dr. Pine. There are endless flowers in the 4 seasons of Duan, and there are evergreen scenes in the 8th festival. There is not enough to see, but there is more to see. Soon the wine was served. Wu Yunyang sat on top, Li Jier sat across from her, and Meng Yulu, Sun Zui, Pan Jinlian, and Sister Simon sat on both sides in order. Yunyang said, "I forgot to ask my brother-in-law to come and sit down." She said to Xiaoyu, "Please ask my uncle to come quickly." After a while, Jingji arrived, with a sky-green hat on his head, wearing a deep purple silk dress and pink feet. He put on his soap boots, bowed forward, and sat down in front of the eldest sister. After passing round a glass of wine, Wu Yunyang played chess with Li Jier and Sister Simon. Sun Zui and Meng Yulu went upstairs to watch. There are only golden lotuses, and they play by the flower pond in front of the mountain, using white gauze to fan the butterflies. Jingji might as well have quietly said jokingly behind him. Wu Niang, you don't know how to pounce on butterflies. Wait for me to pounce on them for you. The butterfly is unstable, and it's a little bit rolling. The golden lotus turned back its pink neck and looked sideways. He glanced at him and cursed. A thief's life is short. Listen, you are waiting for death. I know you don't want to die either. Jingji smiled and rushed towards him, hugged him and kissed him. The woman pushed the young man smoothly, but she didn't expect Yulu to see her from a distance and call out, "Fifth sister, come here. I'll talk to you." Jin Lian just left Jingji and went upstairs. It turned out that the two butterflies were never caught, but when the time came for the swallows and warblers, they made bees and beards. Exactly, crazy bees. Waves and butterflies are sometimes seen flying into the pear blossoms without finding anywhere. When Jingji saw that the woman had gone, he returned to his room silently, feeling unhappy. He used the word squealing to relieve his boredom. I saw him wearing a flower branch at an angle, and his red lips were not rouged, but seemed to be rouge. We met the day before yesterday. It seemed like there was an affair, but there was no affair. I want to see Zhu, but I have never seen Zhu before. It seems to be a refusal, but it is not a refusal. When is the appointment? When will it be? Even if we don't meet, he misses me again. When we meet, I miss you again. Not to mention Wu Yunyang and others drinking in the garden. Dan Biao Ximon King went home after drinking wine at Shoddy Xing Chuangzi outside the door, and passed by Nan Wazi Lane. In the past, when walking in the 3 streets and 2 alleys, all the troublemakers would recognize them. In the Song dynasty, they were called troublemakers, but today they are called bachelors. There are 2 of them, Lu Hua, a snake in the grass, and Zhang Sheng, a street rat. They are often sponsored by Ximon King and are thieves. When Ximon King saw the 2 of them playing for money, he reined in his horse and stepped forward to talk. The 2 of them hurriedly walked forward, knelt down and said, "Master, where are we going this evening?" Ximon King said, "Today is the birthday of Father Jia from the punishment center. The man outside the house invited us to eat. Come on, I have something to ask you. Do you want to obey me or not?" The 2 men said, "No matter how great the officials are, I have received a lot of favors from you. If you are ordered to do so, I will go through fire and water." Ximon King said, "They said, since you are so kind, come to my house tomorrow. I have something to tell you." The 2 of them said, "We'll wait there until tomorrow." "You, the old man, just talk to me. What's the matter?" Ximon King whispered in his ear. And then Zhang Zhushan told him about Li Pinger. "As long as you 2 brothers say this for me," because he immediately picked up the pocket under his clothes. There were 4 or 5 taels of silver, and poured them all out. "With 2 people," he said, "you 2 are going to drink and eat together. As long as you do a good job for me, I'll thank you too." Lu Hua accepted the offer and said, "I don't deserve much kindness from you. I only teach the 2 of you. You can't go to the East Sea to pull out the horns of the dragon's head, or take the teeth from the tiger's mouth in the Shiwayu Mountains. What's so difficult about these trivial things? No villain dares to take this piece of silver." Ximon King said, If you don't accept it, I won't care about you anymore." Zhao Dian took the money and laughed. He was stopped by Zhang Sheng again and said, "Lu Hua, you don't know his old man's nature? You don't accept it, just like we always shirk it." While taking the money, he kowtowed on the ground and said, "You old man only cares about sitting at home. Wait, it won't take more than 2 days. I will teach you to laugh." Zhang Sheng said, "I just hope that the official will send the villain to Jia tomorrow to agree. That's enough for the villain." Ximon King said, "It doesn't matter." Later, Ximon King sent Zhang Sheng to the garrison mansion as a personal attendant. This is a posthumous matter and is not an issue. Those 2 troublemakers got the money and still played with it. When Ximon King came home on horseback, it was already west of Japan. Yunyang and others all went to the back when they heard him coming in. Only Jin Lian was in the rolling shed looking after household chores. Ximon King did not go back, but went straight to the garden. When he saw the woman gathering the boys at the pavilion, he asked, "What are you doing here when I'm not here?" Jin Lian smiled and said, "Let's open the door with my eldest sister today to watch." "Look, I didn't expect you to come so early." Ximon King said, "Master Jia took the trouble to call for singers, but only 5 guests were invited. The man took off his clothes because he said, "You don't have wine. Teach the girl to watch the wine and let you eat." Simon King told Chiang Mai, "Put away all the other vegetables, leaving only a few plates of small fruits. Sift them, bring me a bottle of wine." Sitting on the chair above, he saw the woman wearing an agarwood-colored waterweave cardigan, 5-color crepe eyebrows, and a white polished silk skirt with a bright red stripe and white silk skirt. Shoes. The silver hairpin on her head is inlaid with gold and green plum blossoms, and there are many flowers and green hairpins on the temples. Her lips became more red and her face was white and pink. Unconsciously, she suddenly felt lustful. She took his 2 hands, hugged him and kissed him. After a while, Chiang Mai sifted the wine, and the 2 of them drank and smacked their lips one after another. The woman picked up her skirt, sat on her body, poured wine into his mouth, then picked up a fresh lotus seed with her delicate hands and ate it with him. Simon King said, "It's so spicy. What are you doing with it?" The woman said, "My son, you're going to kill the world. You don't eat what my mother is holding." Another fresh grain was in her mouth. "Just give the walnut kernels to him." Simon King wanted to play with the woman's breasts again. The woman spread out her robe, revealing her flawless and fragrant breasts, which were tightly covered with fragrant milk. After figuring it out for a long time, they licked it with their mouths, making fun of each other, and finished the song Yu Fei. Simon King took advantage of his joy and said to the woman, "I have something to tell you. Tomorrow, I will teach you to laugh. You said that Imperial Dr. Zhang opened a herbal medicine shop, and tomorrow he will open a fruit shop on his face." The woman said. People asked why. Simon King she told him about the encounter with Lu and Zhang outside the door today. The woman smiled and said, "You are a sentient being, and I don't know how many sins you will commit tomorrow." Then she asked, "Isn't this Imperial physician Zhang often come to our house for medical treatment? When I see him, he is very humble, and he only lowers his head when meeting others. What a pity. You are so pretentious." Simon King said, "You can't tell him. You said he is looking at your feet." The woman said, "What a shameless person. Does he look at other people's wives' feet? I don't believe that he, a literary man, is doing this for a living." We joked for a while, stopped drinking, packed up the household chores, and went back to our room to rest. But it was said that Li Pinger married Zhang Zhushan for about 2 months. At first, the woman liked the picture of Zhang Zhushan, so she made some opera medicines, bought some Jingdong personnel, beauty ideas, and the like, in the hope of impressing the woman. Those who don't want women to pass by in Simon King's hands often do things they don't want, and gradually become disgusted with them. Instead, the women smash all their sexual devices with stones and throw them away. He also said, "You are a shrimp and eel, but your waist is weak. You bought this traitor for free to tease me. I treat you like a piece of meat. It turns out that you are a dead bastard who eats bacon butts." He rushed to sleep in the front shop, so I only thought about Simon King and refused to allow him to enter the room. Every day I work hard to calculate my accounts and check my capital. Zhushan was feeling very angry and was sitting in a small cabinet in the shop when he saw 2 people coming in. They were staggering after eating, and then sat down on the stool in shock. First one asked, "Do you have any dog yellow in your shop?" Zhushan smiled and said, "Don't make a show. There is only Bezor. What about dog yellow?" Then he asked, "There is no dog yellow. You have eye sash. Just take it. Come and see. I want to buy you a few tails." Zhushan said, "The herbal medicine store only has Borneo, which is from the Persian country in the South China Sea. Why don't you ask for eye sash?" The other one said, "Don't ask him. Just measure him. Where are these 2 medicinal materials in the shop? Just talk to him seriously. Brother Zhang, don't talk about it in your sleep. My wife died 3 years ago and asked Brother Lu about the 30 pieces he borrowed. 2 taels of silver should be a lot of money. I asked you to come today. We have just entered the house and asked you for it. You are marrying someone else. I am afraid that you will be ruined when you first open this shop. It shows that we have no intention. So I'll tell you a few words to teach you how to recognize Van. If you don't recognize Van, you won't be able to pay him back." After hearing this, Zhushan stood up in shock and said, "I didn't lend him any money." The man said, "You didn't borrow money, but I asked you to ask for it?" Since ancient times, flies have not been able to get through and slit eggs. Stop saying this, Jushin said. I don't know your name. I don't know you. How can you get here? Ask me for money? The man said, Brother Zhang, you are in trouble. Since ancient times, you have never been poor as an official, and you have never been rich by relying on debts. I think you also lost money by selling plasters. Support me, come to this field today. The man said, My surname is Lu, and my name is Lu Hua. You lent me 30 taels of silver a certain year to send your wife and children. The principal and interest were 48 taels, and I will pay you back any less. Me, Jushin said in a panic. Where can I lend you money? I also have a guarantor, Zhang Sheng said. Zhang Sheng is the guarantor. He took out the document from his sleeve and took a photo with him. Jushin's face turned yellow with anger, and he cursed. It's so easy to kill a talented man and a woman. You are the troublemaker, and you came here to scare me. After hearing this, Lu Hua was furious in his heart and screamed across the small cabinet. With a punch, he flew to the front door of Jushin, broke his nose in half, and scattered the medicinal materials on the shelf all over the street. Jushin yelled, What a thief! How can you rob my goods? Because he asked Chan Fuer to help, he was kicked aside by Lu Hua, and Nana dared to come forward again. Zhang Sheng dragged Jushin out of the cabinet, stopped Lu Hua's hand, and persuaded, Brother Lu, you have been waiting for many days. Give him 2 more days, and teach him to get along with you. Second Brother Zhang. What do you say? Jushin said, When will I lend him the money? I just asked you to borrow it, and I will wait for it to be settled. Why do you act so wildly? Zhang Sheng said, Brother Zhang, you have eaten all of ash this time. Come to think of it, if you had done this early, I would have taught Brother Lu to give you some money, and you would have paid it back to him within 2 or 3 days. How could you ignore the hard words? Why don't they ask you for it? Jushin said, I'm so angry that I'll go see the official. Zhang Sheng said, You've had breakfast again. Lu Hua punched again, and he fell forward. He almost fell into the ditch. His hair was spread out, and his clothes were all dirty. Jushin shouted blue sky and white sun and stood up. Baojia came up and tied him with a rope. Li Ping'er heard people outside shouting in the room, and came under the curtain to listen. When she saw that the bamboo mountain that was tied to the place was gone, she opened her eyes in anger. Used Mother Fang to put away all the pretense. A lot of medicinal materials were robbed on the streets. The door is closed on one side. Sitting at home, someone had reported this matter to Ximon King a long time ago, and immediately sent someone to the local area to bring him to the criminal court tomorrow morning. Here I took another post and told Mr. Jia. The next morning, he brought his people to Jieti's punishment hall. After reading the local petition, he called up to Jushin and asked, Are you Zhang Wenhui? How come you borrowed money from Lu Hua and refused to repay it, but instead destroyed and beat him? What's more? What a shame. Jushin said, The villain didn't recognize this person and didn't lend him any money. The villain argued with reason, but he didn't tolerate it. He kicked and beat him and robbed him of all his goods. He called Lu Hua. What do you say? Lu Hua said. He originally borrowed the money from Xiao Xiao to give to his widowed wife. It has been 3 years and he has not been able to pay it back. Xiao Xiao asked today that he had hired a wife and made a big deal, asked him to explain. He insulted me in every possible way, saying that he had robbed him of his goods. Seeing that he had borrowed money from him, Zhang Sheng was the guarantor. I took out the document from my arms and said, Hand it over. Jia Tixing started watching and wrote, The borrower, Zhang Wenhui, was a doctor in the county. Because his wife was dead and he had no money to send, he borrowed 30 taels of silver from Lu Hua's name with Zhang Sheng, the guarantor, and paid 3 cents of monthly interest to spend. The principal and interest will be repaid in the following year, so that no less will be owed. I'm afraid I won't be able to prove it later, so I borrow the ticket and keep the photo here. Jia Tixing looked at it, slapped the case and said angrily, But here we come again. I saw a guarantor, borrowed the note, and refused to pay back. Look at the way this guy choose words. He looks like a debtor. He ordered the people around him, choose the big board, take it down and hit it hard. At that moment, 3 or 4 people, without any explanation, dragged the mountain of bamboo to the ground and beat him hard until the skin was torn and the flesh was dripping with blood. On the one hand, 2 men were sent with white cards to escort Zhang Jushan to his home, and 30 taels of silver were returned to Lu Hua. Otherwise, take him back to the Yamen and imprison him. Zhang Jushan's legs were beaten and stabbed. He went home and cried and begged Li Pinger, asking him for money and giving it back to Lu Hua. Then the woman smacked him in the face and scolded him. "You shameless Wangba! What kind of silver did you put in my hand and asked me for money? If I had known that you, Wangba, would be a debtor after his head was chopped off, I would have gone blind. I don't want to marry you. You are so uninterested and forgetful." The 4 people heard the shouting in the room and kept urging, "Zhang Wenhui has no money, so don't just wait until it's late. Just go to the Yamen as soon as possible to reply." Jushan went out to comfort the gentleman, and then went inside to plead with the woman. Shitier knelt on the ground, crying and said, "You just have to give away these 30 taels of silver to the Buddha in the mountains and 5 houses. If you don't go back with me, how can I be tortured on my rotten ass? It's just death." The woman had no choice but to give him 30 taels of snowflake silver, which she handed over to Lu Hua as an official, and she tore up the document before finishing the matter. Lu Hua and Zhang Sheng got 30 taels of silver and went to Ximon King's house to reply. Ximon King stayed under the rolling shed and took care of the 2 of them. "I told you the past." Ximon King was overjoyed and said, "It's enough for you 2 to say this." Lu Hua handed over 30 taels of silver to Ximon King. Ximon King was willing to accept it. "Take it, you too, and buy a pot of wine to eat." "I'll thank you. I have something to worry about later." They stood up and thanked you again. They took the money and went to play with it. Exactly. He often suppresses the good and despises the good intentions, and the right to do so is particularly bad. But he said that Zhang Jushan paid the money to the punishment court and returned home. The woman allowed him to live there and said, "I just thought that the slave was suffering from sweating sickness. I asked you for these 30 taels of silver to get medicine. You can move out with me as soon as possible. Later, even my 2 rooms the house is not enough for you to give back." Zhang Jushan just knew that he couldn't live in it, so he cried and endured the pain in his legs and went to find another house. But the woman kept all the goods she had purchased, and she immediately urged him to move the original medicinal materials, medicine grinders, medicine sieves, and medicine boxes, and the 2 were settled. Before going out, the woman asked Mother Fang to scoop up a basin of water and quickly poured it on, saying, "I am so happy that my enemies are gone," and sent Jushan out that day. This woman only thought about Ximon King and found out that nothing was going on at home. She felt very regretful. "Every day, I ate tea and rice leisurely, and painted my eyebrows lazily. I leaned against the door and looked through it, hoping in vain that no one would come." Exactly, the words on the pillow are still there, but today the love has fallen. No one was seen in the room, and he was speechless, not to mention that the woman was thinking about Ximon King. But one day Diane passed by on horseback and saw that the woman's door was closed, and the medicine shop was not open. She was quiet and came back to tell Ximon King. Ximon King said, "I think that short Wangba must have been severely beaten. Even if he sleeps in the house, he will not be able to come out to do business for half a month even if he wins." Then he left the matter behind. One day, August 15th, Wu Yunyang's birthday, many guests came to the house and sat in the hall. Because Ximon King and Yunyang didn't talk, he came to Sister Li Gui's house in the courtyard and told Diane, "Go back early and pick me up in the evening." Then he invited Earl Ying and Zida to fight Chuanglu. Yixing was also at home that day, and her 2 sisters accompanied her to drink. For a long time, they all came out to play in the yard. When Diane made an appointment to reach the west of Japan, he reined up his horse and came to pick him up. Ximon King was attending the ceremony at the back when he saw Diane and asked, "Is everything going on at home?" Diane said, "Nothing is going on at home." All the guests in the hall had dispersed, except for the eldest daughter-in-law and her aunt. The aunt invited her to the back. Today, Lion Street Hua Erniang sent Lao Feng and his aunt to give him birthday gifts, for plates of soup and fruit, to plates of longevity peach noodles, and a pair of rulers. The aunt also made a pair of shoes with Lao Feng and asked him to give her a penny. "I'm not at home anymore. I didn't invite him. Seeing Dan's face red, Simon King asked, "Where are you coming to have a drink?" Dan said, "Just now." Nang asked Mother Fang to go and talk to Xiao. I said I didn't want to drink wine, so I forced him to drink for 2 minutes. And then he started to blush. Now the second mother regretted it and cried to my father the day before yesterday, but he still didn't believe me. After coming out of the execution room that day, the second mother was very regretful and wanted to marry her father. She was a little thinner than before, so she asked her father to come over and ask for his advice. "If you spit, tell him something." Simon King said, "You are a slut. You just want to marry a man. Why are you here to pester me? If that's the case, I can't let you go." He said, "Why don't you have tea and a ceremony? Let's pick up the prostitute on a good day." Diane said, "I understand. He's still waiting for me to answer him and teach him how to draw children. Just serve Dad here." Simon King said, "Go ahead. I understand." Diane walked out of the courtyard and walked to Li Pinger and replied to the woman. The woman was filled with joy and said, "Good brother, tell me how tired you are today. And you can do this." Then she cooked and sorted the vegetables herself, took care of Diane, and said, "Your mother. There is no one here. How about you tomorrow? Come and help Tianfu and help people carry him over." The next day, he hired 5 or 6 pairs of bears and carried them for 4 or 5 days. Simon King didn't tell Wu Yunyang, and they all piled them up on the newly built Wanwu Tower. On August 20th, a large sedan chair, a red horse, and 4 pairs of lanterns were chosen. Ding Dan, Ping'an, Huatong, and Lixing were sent to follow the sedan. At noon, Fang married the woman. The woman sent maids to teach Feng's mother to take the lead. They waited until they returned before getting into the sedan chair. Leave the house to Feng's mother and Tianfu to take care of it. Simon King did not go there on that day. He sat in the new rolling shed at home, wearing deep clothes and a scarf, waiting for the woman to come in. The woman's sedan landed at the front gate, and no one came out to greet her for a long time. Meng Yulu came to the room and said to Yunyang, "Sister, you are the head of the family. Now he is at the door. If you don't go to greet Yinger, aren't you offending his father?" His father is sitting in the rolling shed. The sedan has been at the door all day, and no one has gone out. So how can we get in? Wu Yunyang wanted to go out to pick him up, but she felt annoyed but was not discouraged. She wanted to stay but couldn't go out because she was afraid that Simon King had a bad temper. After pondering for a long time, he moved his lotus steps lightly, put on his xiang skirt, and came out to greet her. The woman held the vase and went straight to his new house. The 2 maids, Yingchen and Shuchen, had made arrangements in the room early and were waiting for Simon King to enter the room at night. I don't want Simon King to go into his room because of old worries. The next day, ask him to come out and meet in Yunyang's room at the back. They will rank him according to his size and rank as Liu Niang. Usually, a big banquet will be held on the 3rd day, and the guests will be invited to have a drink together, but they will not go to his room. On the evening of the 1st day, I was in Pan Jinlian's room. Jinlian said, "He is a new guy, and you just left his room empty on the 1st day." Simon King said, "You don't know that the slut is a little angry. Wait for me to do anything to him for 2 days, and then go in slowly. It's here." On the 3rd day, the guests were sent away, and Simon King did not enter his room again, but went to rest in Mengyu's building at the back. When the woman saw that the man did not come into his room for 3 nights in a row, she sent her 2 maids to sleep at midnight. She cried a lot, went to the bed and hung herself from the beam with her feet tied around her neck. Exactly, into the couple's tent. The ghosts of injustice first arrived at the Juchang Spring. The 2 maids woke up after a long sleep and saw that the light was dim. They got up and took out the lamp. They suddenly saw the woman hanging on the bed and panicked. He hurriedly walked out of the next door and called Chen Mai, saying, "My mother has hanged herself." Jin Lian got up in panic and looked over, and saw a woman wearing a bright red dress hanging on the bed. He and Chen Mai quickly cut off the leg straps and rescued him. After half a day, I vomited a mouthful of saliva and finally regained consciousness. He called Chen Mai and said, "Please invite your father soon." Simon King was having a drink in the Yulu room and was not yet asleep. First, Yulu persuaded Simon King, "If you marry him and don't go to his room for 3 days in a row, won't you make him angry?" It's like we put this matter first and let it go. Not this night. Simon King said, I'll go there in 3 days. You don't know. The slut is eating from the bowl and looking at the pot. What have you not told me until now? Why am I not as good as that guy when you are about to recruit me? Yulu said, what's so annoying about you is that he also cheated. While he was talking, there was a sudden knock on the door. Lang Shang, the envoy of Yulu, asked, saying that Chun Mai had come to ask for her father. Liu Niang is hanging in the room. The panicked Yulu encouraged Simon King and said, I told you to go into his room and take a walk, but if you don't obey, just pretend to be something happened. So he held up a lantern and came forward to take a look. When Wu Yunyang and Li Jiar heard this, they all got up and went to his room. Seeing Jin Lian sitting with his arms round him, Ji said, Fifth sister, have you given him some ginger soup? Jin Lian said, I gave him some ginger soup when I rescued him. The woman just choked in her throat. When he returned, Fang cried out. Yunyang and others fell to the ground with a stone's throw, so they put him to sleep and went back to their rooms to rest. The next day, round noon, Li Pinger ate some porridge and soup. Simon King said to Li Jiar and the others, don't believe that slut is pretending to be dead to scare people. I can't let him go. Wait for me to come to the room at night and watch him do it for me. Otherwise, I'll eat it. I'm a good whipper. You don't know who you think I am. Everyone was sweating for Li Pinger when they saw him saying this. In the evening, I saw Simon King going into his room with a riding whip in his sleeves. Yulu and Jinlian ordered Chun Mai to close the door and not allow anyone to come in. They all stood outside the corner gate and listened quietly. Let's say that Simon King saw him sleeping on the bed, lying down and crying. When he saw that he didn't get up after going in, he felt a little unhappy. First, the two girls were driven to live in an empty room. Simon King came over and sat down on the chair, pointed at the woman and cursed. Whore, since you are so guilty, why did you come to my house to hang yourself? You just followed that short wangba there, who invited you here. I have never sent anyone to my house to hang myself. Damn it. What's the reason for you to urinate? I've never seen anyone hang themselves, but I watched you hang yourself today. So he threw a rope in front of him and told the woman to hang herself. The woman remembered that Zhang Zhushan said that Simon King was a wife-beater and a leader who demoted women. She thought about the bad luck in my life. Today, she opened her eyes wide and fell into the fire pit again. She became more and more troubled and cried bitterly. Simon King was so angry that he got out of bed, took off his clothes and knelt down. The woman just couldn't take off her clothes, so Simon King dragged her down on the bed. He took out a whip from his sleeve and whipped her a few times. Then the woman took off her upper and lower clothes and knelt down on the ground tremblingly. Simon King sat and asked the woman from beginning to end, I told you to wait a moment. There are some things at home. Why didn't you listen to me and marry Imperial Physician Chang in a hurry? You married someone else. I'm not upset. What's wrong with Xiao Wangba? You walked him in and opened a shop with him right in front of me, trying to support my business. The woman said, Slave, it's too late to regret not saying anything. Just because you left and never came back, I thought about you day and night. There were often foxes in Queen Kiao's garden back there. I wanted to change my name to you in the middle of the night. He took my essence and left at dawn. If you don't believe it, just ask Lao Feng and the two girls. Later, they took the slave to death and asked Dr. Zhang to see him. It's normal in the basin, but the guy was deceived. He said you had something to do with your family, so you went to Tokyo. You had no choice but to go down this road. Unexpectedly, this guy was a debtor, and he was beaten to the door, and the government was called. The slave swallowed his anger and threw away a few taels of silver. Simon King said, You asked him to write a complaint and accuse me of collecting a lot of things from you. The woman said, You didn't say anything. If the slave said this, the slave's body would be rotten. Simon King said, Even if there is, I'm not afraid. You said you have money. Change your man quickly. I can't tolerate you in my hands. Let me tell you the truth. The former used such tricks to make those two imperial doctors run away quickly. But if they even used some traps, they would have killed you. The woman said, I know it was you who did this trick. I'm sorry to see you. If I get it in an uninhabited place, I'll die. Seeing that Simon King's anger has subsided, then he asked, Whore, come here. Let me ask you, who is better between me and Imperial Physician Zhang? The woman said, what can he compare with you? You are God. He is a brick. You are in the 33 days above. He is below the 99. Don't say that you are a superior person, but you eat strange things every day. He has never seen it in hundreds of years. What can he compare with you? Don't say that even if he is a useless person, if he can compare with you, he will not be so greedy for you. You are like medicine for the slave. Once you take it, the slave will only miss you day and night. With these words, Simon King regained his old love and was filled with endless joy. He threw away the whip, pulled the woman up with his hands, put on clothes, held her in his arms, and said, my son, you are right. Sure enough, this guy saw that the sky is so big. He called Chun Mai, hurry up and put the table down, and get the food and wine later. It's true. The sun rises in the east and rains in the west. The saying is ruthless but affectionate. There is poetry to prove it. When the jasper breaks the melon, the man is turned upside down by his love. Feeling that you are not shy, you turn around and hug me.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.